Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone was a brave warrior, but also an ascetic monk? Who created the banking system? Or why do people fear Friday the 13th? At first glance, these questions seem to have nothing to do with each other. But coincidentally, they are all closely related to a military organization that has existed in history and appeared in many famous movies such as Under the Knight of Templar, Nightfall, and Kingdom of Heaven. Do you wonder what force that is? If you sincerely want to know, then we are ready to answer. Carrying in the cage a heart burning with faith in God, holding high the true mirrors of self, expelling demons and evil people, protecting the glory and holiness of the founder. They are the Knights of the Holy Temple, the most famous warrior order of Christianity. You may know that Judaism, Christianity, also known as Christianity or the founder, and Islam are three monotheistic religions, that is, worshiping only one God. And these three supreme gods are the same reality. Even more special, Jerusalem is also considered a sacred land in the beliefs of all three religions. And this has led to extremely bloody wars for the Holy Land that have lasted until today. During the first self-exertion exercise, from 1996 to 1999, European Christian forces gained control of the Holy Land of Jerusalem from the hands of the Fatimid Islamic dynasty. On that basis, Khafras, Ambassador Bouillon, a French nobleman, and one of the outstanding leaders of the United Army established the National Park of Jerusalem, was a hermit in the Holy City and became its first ruler. Although he did not call himself a garden, but only used the title princess, meaning commander or leader. Entering the first decades of the 12th century, Jerusalem now became a sacred place, attracting countless Christians from all over Europe to come to the land sanctified by the presence of Jesus in history. Now, although the sea route between the Holy Land and the Old Continent was relatively safe under the protection of the Crusaders, but the land route from the coast to the Holy City was not like that. Pilgrims were often robbed and brutally destroyed by bandits with bottomless hearts with gold, silver, and jewels, as well as Muslim warriors who had a deep hatred for the flag religion. In addition, after the war ended, most of the Christian legions withdrew to Europe, leaving only 300 knights and 300 infantry to protect the young kingdom of Jerusalem. It can be seen that this is too small a force to spread and guard everywhere, so they can only concentrate their strength to ensure the safety of the Holy Land. Therefore, an urgent requirement is placed right now, is to have talented and brave warriors ready to stand up to the task of escorting the people of God to the place where he sacrificed his life, suffering and dying on the cross to redeem mankind. In 1119, a French knight named Hildepen, along with 8 comrades, had seen King Baldwin II and Patriarch Vamun of Jerusalem and offered to become guards for the pilgrims. This group of knights swore that they would forever live a life of poverty, chaste, and completely obedient, devoted to the glory of God and obey his laws. They would live like ascetics, not marrying and having children while carrying out their duty to stand supreme in the role of warriors. At this point, many people were skeptical and thought that it was impossible to combine the two roles of warrior and monk in the same person, because warriors must hold swords to kill enemies, and monks are forced to obey the commandments of God, in which the 6th commandment stipulates not to kill, however, according to Hildepen. Practicing these two professions together at the same time will help knights be protected by God and given the strength to fight, to protect the weak at the same time. Using violent actions to destroy enemies is not considered murder, but is killing evil. Persuaded by the determination and spirit of the knights, King Baldwin proposed, agreed to Hildepen's proposal, and his comrades allowed them to establish their own order. He also generously gave the knights a palace on the Temple Mountain, which is said to be built on the old shadow of King Solomon's temple as headquarters. From this time on, the Poor Comrades Order of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, or for short, the Knights Templar, or the Knights Templar, officially born with Hildepen as the first Grand Master. By the way, while mentioning the Temple of Solomon, then the military. There is a little interesting information for you: the audience. According to Jewish legend, this is a work of worship of God, built on the Temple Mount by Solomon, the fourth king of the United Kingdom of Israel, and considered the wisest man ever to live on earth around the middle of the 10th century and the 6th century BC. However, because there has never been a scientific opening conducted at this location, due to extremely sensitive religious reasons, no archaeological evidence has been found. To verify this, the temple is said to be the place to keep the Ark of the Covenant, one of the most sacred relics of Christianity. It is the container of 2 stone borders of the covenant, on which are the 10 commandments of the people spoken by God to Moses on Mount Sinai, to teach the Jewish people, after they crossed the Red Sea to escape slavery under the Egyptian rule. If you have ever seen the movie Hoathin, the Prince of Egypt, you are no stranger to this image. Besides, according to some theories, the view from inside the ruins of the temple, the Knights Templar found the Holy Grail. According to a legend, this is the object used by Jesus during the Last Supper that he shared with his disciples before he died. It was also used to catch the blood of God after he died on the altar. Therefore, anyone who has the Holy Grail in their hands also possesses outstanding talents, limitless strength, and power. Some people even let their imaginations fly further. For example, writer Dan Brown, in his work The Da Vinci Code, said that the Holy Grail is not actually an object, but a person named Mary Magdalene. In the Bible, she is a disciple of Jesus. According to Dan Brown, she is his wife, and therefore the one who carries his blood. When this was discovered, the Knights Templar swore to protect the bloodline of God on the altar. Many people believe that owning such powerful treasures will help the Temple Order gain countless reforms and power in the future. However, until now, there has been no authentic evidence to prove that this information is true. Now, let's go back to the main content. That's enough. Having a sacred place as a headquarters has helped the Knights of the Temple attract many new members to join. From there, they expanded their scale and influence. Supported by church leaders, the Temple Order has become an extremely famous KOL model in the Catholic community and received a lot of contributions and support from land, money, businesses. Even the sons of noble birth were offered as recruits. Another great benefit that the Knights Templar received was the Om Datum Optimum decree directly from Pope Innocent II, granting them immunity from local laws that meant that the warriors of the Templar Order could freely pass through all borders, without paying any taxes and without being responsible before anyone but the Pope, with a clear mission and such abundant resources. The Knights Templar developed extremely quickly, first of all in the military aspect. When going into battle, each knight carried a single-handed sword, about 90 centimeters long, very suitable for fighting on horseback. In addition to the rice stick symbolizing the true spirit of chivalry, the Knights Templar were also proficient in using spears, bows, crossbows, and spears. In terms of protective equipment, they would use cloth armor, chainmail, helmets, and heater-style shields. Later, over time, the Order also upgraded its members with various types. The armor of the first plate on the outside of the armor. Each knight will wear a white round shirt with a red cross on the chest. This is considered the official uniform of the Templar Order, with the white color of the shirt, symbolizing the purity of the soul, and the red color of the cross, meaning ready to be overthrown. The whole view, weapons and armor of the Templar warriors. There is nothing too outstanding compared to other knights of the same period. However, the special point here is that each knight, let me repeat that each knight is fully provided with the equipment just mentioned, with the quality that can be said to be the best at that time. This is an extremely rare thing in the medieval army, when normally soldiers had to spend their own money to arm themselves. The reason the Templar Order can be staffed for thousands of people as one is because of their very good economic ability. One aspect will be noted in the basic knowledge mentioned. In the latter part of the video, equipped with a series of high-quality weapons and armor. The Templar Knights have participated in countless battles, protecting the Holy Land against Muslims. Same role is a cavalry force of the vanguard, carrying out shock attacks, breaking the enemy's front lines. One of the typical victories of the Christian army with the warriors of the Templar Order is the Corps attack. The Corps attack is the Battle of Mon-Gijaz year, 1177. November 18th, 1177. Sultan Saladin of the Ayau dynasty, the great warrior of the Muslim world. Champion of the Ngala, led a large army, 26,000 soldiers, the forerunner of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, knowing that his army was much larger than the flag. Saladin did not hesitate to march north from Egypt, along the coast of Palestine, receiving intelligence. The Grand Master of the Temple was Odo, his brother. The messenger gathered all the knights he could move south to Gaza to fight the enemy. Anticipating the reaction of the Knights Templar, Saladin put his army on ships, bypassing Gaza and advancing to besiege the port city of Ascalon. But just a few hours before the Muslim army arrived, the fourth brother of Jerusalem was only 16 years old and was ravaged by a terrible disease. The gods personally brought 500 knights and several thousand infantry to defend the city, forcing Saladin, once again, to change his plans. Seeing that the land route to the holy city was now completely open, the king left a small army to guard his brother and mobilized the whole army to head straight for Jerusalem. Saladin now, as he had stepped one foot into the gates of the holy city, made him extremely confident. However, his arrogance made the champion of the Holy Allah lose his guard. He said that it was a control over the soldiers, allowing them to roam and plunder the surrounding areas. Meanwhile, the king ordered the four brothers somehow to inform the situation to the great American general Odo in Gaza. The Holy Knights did not hesitate to join forces with the king. Then the total force of 4,500 men rushed out of Ascalon towards Jerusalem. November 25th. Exactly 1 week after leaving Egypt, Saladin and his army were crossing a ravine near Mount Giza, southeast of Jerusalem, when Christian warriors from the north suddenly attacked them. On the first week, none other than the general of the army, Odo, with 80 of his brothers, led a charge straight into the center of the enemy formation, ready to strike the island, true to the meaning of the blood red cross symbol on the white background on the chest. Later historians recounted that the Knights of the Order united in one heart, 80 men as one charged, not turning left or right, but straight ahead. Recognizing Saladin's center, the commander had many knights. They imagined striking straight into this position and piercing that barrel. The crosses of rice rang out endlessly. The light reflected from the sun made them flash like thunder. The rays came down from heaven to crush the enemy, the Muslim. Forces at this time still in a state of dispersion, added to the tension and fatigue after the long march, so they did not have time to stabilize, to form a defensive line to play. As a result, the Knights Templar successfully broke the hastily arranged ranks of the enemy, then joined with King Hui and his warriors to inflict heavy casualties on the Muslim army, forcing them to retreat in haste. The holy city of Jerusalem was preserved, all thanks to the genius of the command of King Bao Nguyen, the fourth into the invincible schools of the Knights Templar. Continuing on the sound line then, at Mangizeth, the Temple and the Hospitaller Order participated in campaigns against the Muslims in the Iberian homeland. Here they captured many Spanish and Portuguese castles, along with the huge tanks stored inside them, a huge economic resource, allowing the order to continue military operations on a large scale in the east. In the second half of the 12th century, the wind began, the turning point, the Muslim world became more unified. Saladin's order. Those who could not forget the humiliation at Mangiseth. Meanwhile, conflicts of purpose, tactics, strategy, and interests began to arise between the Templars and other military orders of the monotheism, like the Knights Hospitaller and the Knights of the Cross. Decades of such strife significantly weakened the entire force of the monotheism, both politically, large military. Then, in 1187, 10 years after the Battle of Mangiseth, Saladin once again brought 40,000 troops to attack the Salem border. The kingdom was now in a state of division. After the death of King Bao Xuan IV in July of 4 that year, the Muslim army besieged the city of Tiberias, Raymond VIII, Count of Tripoli, and the Knights of the Hospitaller advised the King of Jerusalem at that time, Guy, the ambassador of Lusignan, not to surrender because the current military force of the country was not equal to the enemy, and Saladin could not hold the city for too long. However, because Raymond had previously opposed Guy's accession to the throne, because he was only the brother-in-law of King Bao Xuan IV, so the king ignored those words of advice to listen to the words of the great commander of the order, Gerard the ambassador of Ryford, and the army fought back Saladin. So on July 4th, 1187, with twice the number of troops and high morale, the Muslim warriors completely destroyed 20,000 Christian troops at the Battle of Hattin, successfully captured Jerusalem after the battle, except for the Grand Master Gerard, the remaining 230. Knights Templar all were beheaded, despite defeat. But as in many other battles, the Knights Templar were noted for fighting extremely bravely, never retreating or surrendering. They went into battle with an absolute belief that God was blessing and giving them strength, as well as an iron will nothing could change. This made each soldier of the Templar Order the most outstanding warriors of their time. After losing the Holy City, the Knights had to leave the headquarters, port city of Acre. However, they only held it for a century and lost the city in 1291. Continuously after that, before the strong expansion of the Muslims, they continuously let the bases on the mainland fall into the hands of the enemy and were forced to move the headquarters to Ship Island and maintain an additional branch on Awad Island off the coast of Syria. Beginning of the year 1300, the Knights lost the island to the Muslim king Memluk in Egypt, officially lost their last foothold on the city's land. Now, although the military role of the order has become relatively small, support for Islam has also gradually decreased. However, their economic and political power is still something that cannot be overlooked, because during the nearly 200 years of their existence, besides the duty of fighting to protect the pilgrims and the city, the Knights Templar also held control of many crabs, in addition to the direct contributions given to them. They were the property of the nobles and warriors who participated in the crusade before leaving their homeland. Following the call of the faith, they entrusted the order to protect, because in any era, there are always dozens of low-ranking men in a square meter, and the Knights Templar have more than enough prestige and skills to ensure that the gold and silver bags are not lost even. Just a single penny besides. Pilgrims or merchants, before starting their journey to Jerusalem, can also cede their property and valuables for the temple. The order will value them and issue them a certificate of authenticity, so that after their safe arrival in the Holy Land, the pilgrims will use this document to exchange for an amount of wealth of equivalent value. If you, the audience, find this method of transaction something familiar, then yes, this is the foundation of today's banking industry, and the certificates issued by the Temple Order are the early forms of credit and credit. They not only help pilgrims avoid becoming a lucrative source of income for bandits, because now they do not need to carry many assets, with providing the temple with a huge source of military funds to pay for their activities. Uncounted sources of money continuously flow into the treasury. Plus, not having to pay taxes thanks to the privilege granted by the Pope has made the poor comrades of Christ and the Temple of Solomon no longer poor. Along with that, the image of two knights marrying a horse on the seal of the order, a symbol of difficulty with finance in the early stages of establishment, when there was only enough money to buy a horse for two people to share. This also seems to no longer be the true meaning of the bronze based on the sponsored contributions and business transactions. The Knights of the Temple established a dense financial network across the continent. In addition, they held in their hands the trade routes owned large and fertile lands, both in Europe and the Middle East. They bought and managed estates. They built cathedrals and massive castles. They participated in buying and selling production and import and export. They had a private fleet of ships serving logistics and trade. At one point, they even owned the entire island. Many experts believe that the Net Temple Group was the first multinational corporation in the world. In addition, to keep the money circulating, the Knights also organized and implemented financial support activities for many subjects. This sounds a bit strange for a religious organization, but the Holy Law only forbids usury. It is not forbidden to give interest to some. In fact, the monasteries and churches have been the creditors of the royal family and the nobility throughout Europe for hundreds of years, and this is also a seed, very leading to the collapse of the net. From the 12th to the 14th century, the influence of Christianity on secular countries is increasingly weakened due to the structure of a state, day by day more and more solid. If before people were sheep of God, before being subjects of the king, now everything is completely reversed. This makes the relationship between the court and the church increasingly tense, especially when the church holds in its hands the numerous warrior monasteries, bearded and good at fighting, like the Knights Templar. Meanwhile, Pope Boniface VIII continuously tried to impose control on secular governments, making many monarchs, especially King Philip IV of France, very dissatisfied. Many conflicts between the French royal family and the Holy See broke out both because of politics and military. In 1303, Pope Boniface VIII, due to old age and weakness, he passed away. Decisively, the work of the Church to interfere in his governance. Once again, Philip IV seized this opportunity and installed Pope Bunyan Clement to serve. On November 14th, 1305. Besides the Pope, the Knights Templar were also a thorn in the king's side. The reason came from the fact that for many years, the French monarchs had hired them to manage the country's finances. It made it almost impossible for Philip to raise money at will and was forced to go through the Order of the Temple. Or to put it bluntly, he had to ask for coins that he made himself. In addition, the church rumored that the Order of the Temple was not controlled by the local government. This began to hatch the idea of establishing their own state in France. Just like the way the Knights of Tilton were to open the world, and the Knights Hospitaller were to open the island of Rosa. At the same time, the king was having to borrow money from the Knights Templar. A huge sum of money, estimated to be up totens of millions of livres, to pay for the war with the English. For all these reasons, Philip decided to execute his creditors to keep the king from the debt collectors and completely free from the influence of the church from there to seize the divine power, merge with the royal power to achieve absolute power. Jiang morning, Friday, October 13th, 1307.
King Philip IV ordered the arrest of Grand Master Jacques de Molay and the members of the Templar Order in all their masters in France, in the indictment of the Knights Templar, accused of hypocrisy, that during initiation ceremonies new recruits were forced to spit on the cross, declare denial of
God worship, Satan, and practice encouragement, acts of homosexuality. They admitted to the charges of corruption, fraud, and conspiracy. In prison, many knights were forced to confess and tortured, so they admitted their crimes immediately after the arrest. In France, Pope Clement V issued an edict to all the Catholic monarchs in Europe, confining all the Knights Templar and confiscated their property. He also called hearings to impeach the knights here. Many members of the order with legal skills turned against each other and wrote their own defense to protect themselves as well as their comrades. However, when King Philip appointed an archbishop close to him as chief inquisitor, all the last. Efforts of the knights became useless. In 1312, Pope Clement V ordered the dissolution of the poor companion order of the Lord Quito and the Temple of Solomon. All their property was confiscated and handed over to the Order of Arms. 2 years later, the Knights Templar, one by one, were burned at the stake. A common death penalty for those convicted of heresy. And on August 13th, it was the turn of Grand Master Jacques de Molay, and the high-ranking officers of the order burned alive from the flames. De Molay spoke out, King Philip and the Pope. God knows who was wrong and who had sinned. Disaster would soon come to those who had condemned us. We do not know whether the prayer was actually fulfilled. But only 3 months after de Molay returned to God, King Philip IV died of a stroke on a hunting trip. Most of his sons later died young, causing the Capuchin prince to rule France for another 14 years before he had to hand over power to the emperor. As for Pope Clement V, his death was even more terrible. On the night of April 20th, 1314, while the Pope's body was waiting to be buried, a storm broke out, and a prophet dared to break the roof. The church tiles they entered where he lay and caused the body to burn fiercely, so that when the fire was put out, Clement V had already burned into a circle because of this uncanny coincidence of the prayer of de Molay, that from then on, Friday the 13th, the day of the night stream, the soup spilled. The people of Europe were extremely patient, considering this a day when bad and unlucky things would easily happen. After the night stream in France was abolished, the remaining knights all over Europe were captured and tried, or were put into other military orders. Some landed safely and lived out their days peacefully. Also, in some places, such as Spain and Portugal, the monarchs there refused to persecute the knights, even allowing them to continue their activities under a new name, the Military Order of the Tonki. 2. However, this organization was closed by the secular world in 1789, leaving the Knight Stream without any descendants existing to this day. Although there are still rumors passed down through generations that the Knights Templar have never been extinct. Instead, they have become an underground organization, silently carrying out the task of protecting Christianity from the shadows. Here we come to the end of the order. According to you, the audience, what is the most impressive point in their 200-year history? The mysterious legends surrounding them, pure Christian faith, unparalleled courage, good economic ability, or the painful ending? Besides the Knights Templar, are you interested in military knowledge about any other knight order? Don't hesitate to leave your opinion in the comments section below. And now, I need to represent the whole team. Hello, see you again, and wish you a wonderful day. This organization was locked down by the secular world in 1789, causing the Knight Stream to have no descendants, existing to this day. However, there are still rumors, passed down through the generations, that the Knights Templar have never been destroyed. Instead, they have become an underground organization, silently carrying out the task of protecting Christianity from the shadows. Here we have come to the end of the order. According to you, the audience, what is the most impressive point in their 200-year history? The mysterious legends surrounding them, pure Christian faith, unparalleled courage, good economic ability, or the painful ending? Besides the Knights Templar, are you interested in military knowledge about any other knight order? Don't hesitate to leave your opinion in the comment section below. And now, I need to represent the whole team. Hello, see you again, and wish you a wonderful day. This organization was locked down by the secular world in 1789, causing the Knight Stream to have no descendants, existing to this day. However, there are still rumors passed down through the generations that the Knights Templar have never been destroyed. Instead, They have become an underground organization, silently carrying out the task of protecting Christianity from the shadows. Here we have come to the end of the order. According to you, the audience, what is the most impressive point in their 200-year history? The mysterious legends surrounding them, pure Christian faith, unparalleled courage, good economic ability, or the painful ending? Besides the Knights Templar, are you interested in military knowledge about any other Knight Order? Don't hesitate to leave your opinion in the comments section below. And now, I need to represent the whole team. Hello, see you again, and wish you a wonderful day.